At one point, flying wasn't about finding the lowest fare. It was about status, experience, and who you were. Airlines catered to the elite, and no name represented that world more than Pan American World Airways, better known as Pan Am. But when air travel transformed from a luxury for the few into a commodity for the many, the very company that built global aviation found itself unable to compete in the world it helped create, and ultimately failed. So what went wrong? What does it take to bring down a company that once defined global travel and generated billions in revenue doing it? For decades, one name didn't just participate in aviation, it built it. There was a time when Pan Am was the airline of the world. In the earliest days, that world didn't even have runways. It had water. Pan Am's long-distance international flights were conducted using flying boats like the Sikorsky S-42 and the Boeing 314 Clipper. These aircraft landed in harbors and coastal waters with passengers boarding from docks. Pan Am built the infrastructure, negotiated the international routes, and effectively created the first global air network from scratch. Business leaders, diplomats, celebrities, and the wealthy dominated the passenger lists, and the experience reflected that reality: spacious cabins, attentive service, and a sense that the journey itself mattered as much as the destination. Pan Am built its brand around that world. Then came the jet age, and once again, Pan Am led the transition. Working closely with Boeing, Pan Am became the launch customer for the Boeing 707. In 1958, Pan Am brought jet-powered international travel into service. Travel times dropped dramatically, and global mobility changed almost overnight. A decade later, Pan Am pushed even further. It became the launch customer for the Boeing 747, and in January 1970, they brought the era of wide-body, high-capacity travel into existence. The 747 didn't just increase capacity, it made international travel scalable. At this point, Pan Am had helped define multiple eras of aviation, from seaplanes to jets to jumbo jets. But culturally, air travel still carried an aura of prestige. That changed in 1978 with the Airline Deregulation Act. Before deregulation, fares were controlled and competition was limited. Airlines differentiated themselves through service, not price. Pan Am thrived in this environment, catering to travelers who expected a premium experience and were willing to pay for it. After deregulation, the industry transformed almost immediately. New competitors, including low-cost carriers like Southwest Airlines, entered the market. Legacy carriers like American and Braniff quickly matched prices with the new low-cost carriers. Pricing became the primary lever. Fares dropped, sometimes dramatically. And for the first time, air travel became accessible to middle-income families, vacationers, and everyday travelers. Air travel shifted from luxury to utility. Customers began making decisions based on price first, not experience. Even business travelers became more cost-conscious as companies tightened their travel budgets. This experience exposed a fundamental weakness in Pan Am's model. The airline was built for a premium customer base with a cost structure to match. Large aircraft, international operations, and high service standards created an expense profile that required higher ticket prices to sustain profitability. But the market no longer supported those prices. Pan Am couldn't easily lower costs without eroding the brand it had spent decades building. At the same time, it couldn't compete with low-cost carriers whose business models were designed for a price-driven market.
There's a certain Southwest spirit. If you listen, you can hear it.
People ask me why Southwest Airlines is so successful.
There's a certain Southwest style. You can see it in the smiles.
It seems perfectly obvious to me. Brilliant leadership.
There's a certain Southwest flair. You can feel it in the air.
Well, there might be some other reasons.
We're Southwest Airlines. Keeping fares low. And spirits high for you.
Compounding the problem, Pan Am lacked a domestic route network, limiting its ability to feed passengers into its international flights and compete effectively. So, Pan Am purchased National Airlines in 1980. The goal was to quickly build a domestic route to feed passengers into its international flights, something Pan Am lacked compared to competitors. However, the acquisition was expensive and difficult to integrate, and ultimately added significant financial strain rather than solving the problem. The financials began to reflect that strain. The issue wasn't demand for air travel. Demand was actually up. It was alignment with the new economics of the industry. External shocks accelerated the decline. The Lockerbie bombing damaged public confidence. The Gulf War reduced international travel demand. Fuel prices increased. To survive, Pan Am began selling assets. Routes, aircraft, and infrastructure were divested to generate cash. These moves provided short-term relief, but weakened the company's long-term viability.
The airline that pioneered commercial aviation 50 years ago is grounded tonight. Pan Am went out of business.
After declaring bankruptcy on December 4th, 1991, Pan Am ceased all operations. The company that had once defined global aviation was gone. Pan Am's story is not simply about failure. It's about a company that led multiple waves of innovation but struggled to adapt to a fundamental shift in its market. It pioneered seaplane travel when infrastructure didn't exist. It helped launch the jet age as the launch customer for the Boeing 707. It helped enable mass international travel as the launch customer for the Boeing 747. But it was built for a world where air travel was exclusive. When that world changed and air travel became accessible to a much broader population and price became the primary decision factor, Pan Am's model no longer aligned with the market. Its cost structure just couldn't support discounted pricing. Its brand could not easily transition from premium to price-driven. Its strategy could not adjust fast enough. The decline did not happen overnight. It unfolded over years, masked by scale and brand strength, until the underlying weaknesses could no longer be sustained. The lesson is straightforward. Building an industry doesn't guarantee survival within it. Pan Am joined a large list of companies who pioneered or helped define a category, but ultimately failed or collapsed, including Kodak, Polaroid, BlackBerry, Blockbuster, Toys R Us, and so many more. When customer expectations shift from experience to price, from exclusivity to accessibility, the companies that once defined the premium end of the market often face the greatest risk. Success is not just about innovation and scale. It's about alignment. And when that alignment breaks, even the most iconic companies can disappear. If you enjoyed this episode of Reluctant Lessons, where businesses go wrong, there's more coming because the pattern is always the same. Success leaves clues, but so does failure. As I mentioned, we have more Reluctant Lessons coming your way. Radio Shack, WeWork, Toys R Us, and so many more. There's absolutely no shortage, so be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. And remember, success leaves clues, but failure leaves lessons if you're willing to see them. Thanks so much for being here. I truly appreciate you. I'll see you again on the next Reluctant Lessons.